Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 4, entitled Room for Growth. It was a fine episode. There was some interesting things in this episode. A few jokes, a couple of laugh out loud moments, few references back to other episodes of Star Trek, most notably the Masks episode of Next Generation in one of the later seasons. And today we're going to be talking about all those little bits and pieces from this episode, a few references and in-jokes and, you know, all that sort of stuff, and just an overall rundown of the episode. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, please do so. Click on that big red button to stay current and up-to-date with all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. For starters, the ancient mask that Freeman was wearing in the very opening scenes of this episode, she's flung to the air, she's got the mask on, she's been possessed by ancient gods, is obviously a direct reference to the Next Generation episode Masks, where we saw Data possessed by a number of entities from an ancient planet that had imbued a mask with these kind of spirits. And if I remember correctly, it was quite a tour de force in the acting department from Brent Spiner in that episode. He really kind of pulled out all his acting chops for that one. And this opening scene of this episode, direct reference to that. I thought it was cute how Boimler's violin turned into the same totem or whatever that we saw Picard and Riker and everything holding in that Masks episode. Although I think the name of the god Manuki was slightly different, but then again, I think there's only a couple of gods mentioned or entities mentioned in the Next Generation episode, whereas I think they were one of very many spiritual entities that were possessing Data. So, Freeman's got another one under her belt for this episode. And it's taken a bit of work from the engineering crew to clean up all of the mess that the mask possession has created throughout the ship. I gotta say, I loved the moment when Freeman was reading out Dr. Ta'ana's medical assessment of Phillips' mental state or whatever, having been up for like a week to clean up all the mess and everything, and where she says,
her medical opinion is that you are a f***ing pile of stress.
That got a really big chuckle from me. I think that was a funny moment. And we sort of get a bit of back and forthing in this episode between an A and a B story, where we got the rivalry going down between the Delta shift and Boimler, Tendi Mariner being the Beta shift, in terms of who's going to get this new room. There's a room on deck one that's up for grabs, and they want to rig the lottery to ensure that they get it. And we sort of end up cutting back and forth between this and the engineering crew, who are kind of all on shore leave on the Dove, which is like a spa ship, a Federation kind of health retreat spa. Run by an Adosian. We've seen an Adosian one more time in Lower Decks previously, obviously the same race as Arex, the navigator on Star Trek the Animated Series. There's always Star Trek Animated Series references in Lower Decks, I find. They always chucking them in there. And it was quite funny the way we had all these different rooms on the spa retreat with the puppies and mud baths from Tellarite or whatever, and we've got Klingons having Mek'leth target practice in like a sort of a sparring room, and they were a bit too scared to tell him that his time was up, just in case he kind of went a bit crazy. Meanwhile, all the engineers are sort of ignoring all of that and too busy trying to fix doors and other things that are kind of broken and aren't working properly on the station, just to because they're so obsessed with being engineers that they can't help themselves. And in the Lower Deckers' quest to rig the lottery for the new room or whatever, we surprise upon Ta'ana and Shaq's holodeck program in action, which is kind of like a Dixon Hill program. We've got the black and white thing. It's like a bank heist that they've got going on. They're disabling the safeties, and it seems like it's a bit of a program to get them both worked up to engage in other holodeck type programs, I suppose. It was funny seeing them getting into that holodeck, turning the safeties off, kind of a bit like what Picard did in Star Trek First Contact when he had the Dixon Hill program up and running and he disabled the safeties and used the Tommy gun to take out a whole bunch of Borg. It sort of seemed like Ta'ana was kind of into that kind of same sort of routine. So yeah, it was sort of a fun in reference there to that moment in Star Trek First Contact. We had the Lower Deckers weirdly kind of navigating unusual parts of the ship which are not normally investigated, such as the area underneath hydroponics, which has all the roots and the swampy kind of situation going on there, with different kind of plants that are hallucinogenic, and we've got Boimler and Mariner kind of tripping out in this sort of swampy environment, making their way through bizarre kind of anti-gravity kind of situations, which was kind of fun, which I guess was kind of a little bit similar to, I think it was Travis Mayweather on Enterprise used to kind of find the low gravity areas of the ship and sit upside down on the ceiling and everything. So that was sort of, I guess, maybe a little bit of a reference to that. But it actually ended up being the area in behind the main deflector dish when they had to kind of turn it on to bounce a few asteroids off the hull, and we ended up, our lower deckers being caught in some sort of weird turbine and having to use their clothes as tethers and stuff in order to not get sort of sucked into the back end of the main deflector dish, I suppose. I love the moment on the spar ship when Freeman kind of has a freak out because her stress levels are through the roof. The engineers are kind of probably the calmest bunch of the lot, and Freeman's ranting and screaming and saying, "God damn engineers, you're all just a bunch of Geordie LaForges." I thought that was a cool kind of moment. I chuckled at that one. Meanwhile, our lower deckers, both Beta and Delta shifts, are kind of having a bit of a bonding moment or whatever in the Jeffries tubes, waiting for some door to unlock so they can hack the computer to rig the lottery to win the quarters on deck one. We get some weird churro information about ransom. And there's a bit of bonding going on here with these guys, but it's all a bit of a ruse, and the Delta shift ends up sort of screwing them over to get the lottery rigged in their favour. The Spar Retreat thing was an interesting addition to the Star Trek universe, although it kind of makes me think, why can't these people just schedule some holodeck time? Surely some holodeck time, lying on the beach in Risa or something, for a couple of hours a day or something would be equally as stress relieving as what this ship had to offer. So it sort of seemed to maybe a little bit of a superfluous sort of establishing a new location here. But although the engineered relaxo chamber or whatever that took off weeks of stress in a matter of seconds did seem to be a very worthwhile invention by the engineering crew, and certainly one of these on every ship would certainly have its benefits. Personally, I just think scheduling an hour by the pool or something on Risa or whatever in the holodeck would certainly do the trick, you'd think, in most circumstances. All in all, I think this was a fine episode. It had a couple of decent laugh out loud moments. The story was okay. It was good to have the link back and the references to that TNG Masks episode, and a few little other things like the Dixon Hill episodes of The Next Generation and everything, with what Shax and Ta'ana were up to. So yeah, it was okay. It wasn't the most amazing episode we've had of Lower Decks, but it wasn't a bad episode. We had a sprinkling of references in there and some funny lines of dialogue that had us laughing out loud. So all in all, I think this was a fine episode of Lower Decks. But let me know what you guys think of this episode. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. And let me know what your impression was of this episode, the 4th of the season, Room for Growth. Guys, there's a merch store sale at the moment. Free shipping. Pick yourself up a t-shirt or a hoodie or a mug or a cap or a sticker or you name it. It's all there. Heaps of new designs, all in the merch store, and it's free shipping until the 17th of September. So be sure to check that out. I'll be back very soon with my next video. I'll catch you guys soon.